It's Patrick Beatty Reviews, the #1 for news. It's Patrick Beatty Reviews, #1 for news. Yeah. Tune in, get up. Yeah, what's up?
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What is up, my gaggly geeks, and welcome to our review of Mortal Kombat. And I have Rachel's reviews with me. How's it going?
Hi.
Oh no,
so
I
good
missed
to
the
be
sound
here.
effects for it. Dang it! I was gonna put on a applause thing. Here it is. Boom. Welcome, Rachel. We're kind of doing a cross thing. We're both reviewing Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation in prelude to Mortal Kombat, the 2021 film that's coming out on HBO Max and in theaters next Friday. Rachel, you had messaged me, and we've been kind of frequent collaborators. We go on each other's channels or podcasts, do some stuff, and we had pitched doing another one, and then it was pitched that we would do Mortal Kombat. What were your first thoughts about that?
Well, I just thought I don't know if I'm the right person necessarily, because I know absolutely nothing about the game, like nothing.
Yeah.
And
Have you played the game at all?
Never. I
Never
know
played. Okay.
nothing. So, but I'm a team player, so I'm like, sure, let's do it.
Is it because of the blood or gore, or is it because just never crossed over your console?
I just don't play video games. I have what's called a strabismus, a lazy eye, and so it's hard for me to focus on things like a video game, and it makes me. I have a little bit of dyslexia. Just all those different things just make it so
make a video game a nightmare
for me. So that's why I know nothing about video games.
Well, I can kind of agree to. I can kind of I guess empathize with that. Me being a kid growing up in an LDS background with parents that wouldn't even let me watch the Power Rangers when I was growing up because that would be too much, and I would end up jumping and kicking and swatting stuff, and I would often go past like a cousin or somebody that was playing this game where I would look and see the most violent stuff happening on screen in this little like 16-bit looking like thing. As a kid, I was dazzled by it, like seeing all the fighting, hearing all the sound effects, which funny enough, we actually have a few sound effects, and I think they'll be really good as we use them throughout this review. But I was never really allowed to play them. So growing up, obviously, if you're not allowed sugar growing up, you're just going to eat tons of sugar, which is what I did with sugar and what I did with Mortal Kombat. So I bought games, played them, understood a little bit of the story. So I know enough to get us through some things, but Mortal Kombat, the 1995 version, I don't know how accurate it is to the actual lore of Mortal Kombat.
It seemed like when watching it that there was a lot of Easter eggs, that there was just a lot of stuff that I was like, I bet that's in there for the people who like the game. I bet that's in there for, but since I don't know, I don't know for sure, but yeah, I have seen a number of video game movies. It's always been a bit of a rough, like, I think my favorite video game movie to this point that I've seen is probably the second Angry Birds movie. Is probably my favorite.
No, you didn't like Jumanji or Detective Pikachu?
I mean, I guess if that counts.
There've been some good, I don't know if they loosely or strictly follow it, but this feels like, because Mortal Kombat's just a punching game, it's a fighting game, so they've built a lot of story to it. So the basic story about it is that there's a warrior named Liu Kang, an actor named Johnny Cage, a soldier named Sonya Blade, all being guided by this god named Raiden on their journey to combat the evil sorcerer Shang Tsung as he forces a tournament to save Earth. They're in this different area called Outworld, and basically the tournament is to save Earthrealm, which Raiden is the protector of. It's directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who's done the Resident Evil films. What did you think of the film, Rachel?
I thought it was okay. I think the way that I compared it to in my review is like an episode of like Xena or Hercules or that kind of a show. I think it's similar to, and maybe not as good as those, but on that level, I think, is how I would compare it.
What did you like about it as far as like the story, or didn't like it as far as the story goes, or the characters?
I mean, it's really mostly fun for the action, I would say. for the fighting. And I mean, I wouldn't say it has great characters or a great story. It's a pretty simple story. But yeah, I think most people are watching something like this for the action.
Well, we have Christopher Lambert as Lord Raiden, who, if you've seen the Dexter films, he's Dexter's father. It's very interesting because he's kind of the main. If you were to look at like the top billed cast, he's the main person for it. What they end up doing with this movie, it kind of reminds me a lot of like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films, right? Where they're not necessarily going strictly directly what Mortal Kombat was, but they're giving enough stuff to make audience goers, or at least think the audience goers will overall enjoy themselves. And I don't think it hit as strong as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but there's a weird 90s essence to it that is kind of captivating.
Well, Christopher Lambert, he is in, of course, the Highlander movies, and I actually just watched the first Highlander for my Blind Spot series in April, just barely. And so it's very fresh for me. It's the first time I'd seen it. And that movie, I think, is way better than this, as far as having sort of this campy action and also still being intriguing and having interesting world building and interesting story. And so the action is less generic than the action in this movie. And I mean, I just think it's way better.
Oh, but I don't know if this is the same with you, but anytime that theme music kicked in, didn't you get a little bit of like a rise of serotonin? You were just like, ah! Like, you gotta, like you just ate a big bowl of cereal or something. I just started punching, kicking. I felt like a kid again. You're like, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Get over here!
I think it comes down to the director of Highlander, Russell Mulcahy. Anyway, way more interesting. It makes way more interesting choices than Paul W.S. Anderson makes. The way that they'll use these one-take shots coming in on a fight scene, or the way the camera is constantly kind of moving, is way more interesting than anything that Paul W.S. Anderson does here. And I mean, I think I said on Twitter after I watched this, I said that the career of Paul W.S. Anderson should give anybody hope that wants to get into movies, because he is not a very good director, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And this is by no means his worst, that's for sure. But he's just very bland, I think, as a director. He doesn't do anything interesting. It's very much on that like television kind of camp level, I would say.
Well, it's interesting because like this film in a way shouldn't have been made in the 90s for its time, mainly because of its PG-13 rating. When you're playing the game, the minute you start playing it, this is not a PG-13 video game. This is the rated R adaptation is the only way you could go with a Mortal Kombat film. And it feels like there's just, I don't know if this was a property that the studio either had a lot of investment in and was very like particular with what they needed, or they didn't know anything about it and were even more particular. Sometimes that can be the case, where they don't understand the IP and therefore are kind of more like choppy with the film, and like we want to change this part. And some things kind of felt like that, but the atmosphere overall felt pretty consistent. The way that they made like all of the 90s sets and designs, like it was fun to see that stuff. And the action scenes, for the most part, actually they work pretty well. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, and this movie was very successful. It had a very small budget, $18 million, and made $122 million at the box office. So pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's
respect.
it's harmless. It's a fun enough movie. I just
but it's not a 5 over 10. This is harmless in the sense of like a kid spilt ice cream all over you. It's like, but you're not going to get mad at the kid. And it's like, I don't know, maybe I could eat some of the ice cream and be happy, but it's definitely not. Yeah, this is, I think the new one will be better than this. Do you agree?
Oh yeah,
it
definitely.
has to be.
I
But
think
let's talk about
so.
so many characters that they brought into this too, right? So many characters
Mhm.
that are just introduced in a flash that I think it's gonna be tough to see that also in this new film. Establishing so many
Mhm.
characters, trying to establish Outworld, Earthrealm, calling Earthrealm Earth and all that stuff. Uh, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Who was your MVP character? Who was the one that you had the most fun watching?
Probably, probably Johnny Cage. Probably
Mm.
my favorite.
Hey, he liked chewing those scenes.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
fun.
he had fun. I think Sonya and Jax seem to have the most like progressed story arcs, I guess. Liu Kang, uh, of course, was a star, but Sonya and Jax had pretty good back and forth, and you'll see in later on in the next film they're completely recast,
Yeah.
just without warning. And Bridget Wilson was the lady that played Sonya Blade. Funny enough, it was originally going to be Cameron Diaz to play Sonya Blade in this film, but for one reason or another, ended up getting out of there, probably because she read the script. But Rachel, what? Anything else that you want to talk about with this? What would be your final score of it if you don't have anything else?
Well, I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. I
Mhm.
probably, so that would be, I guess, a 5 out of 10. It's fun enough. I didn't mind watching it, enjoyed watching it, but I don't think I could go fresh
Mhm.
on it. I don't know. It's just so bland,
Yeah.
but it's right on the edge, I would say.
I would probably say the same. For me, I would go maybe 5.5 out of 10, just because I don't know if a movie like forces my body to get up and start doing kung fu moves that my wife looks at me aggressively angry at, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're almost 30, kid. Like that, it did its job a little bit at entertaining me. So
Yeah.
5.5, but it is horribly dated at this point, and there's just I don't know. There's just a lot that could be from it, but that is our review of Mortal Kombat. Please check out Rachel at Rachel's Reviews, youtube.com/c/Rachel's Reviews. Thank you so much for joining, and we're going to be seeing you over at the next review, Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Yikes.
Let's just end this. Oh no.